Altogether, Poland has 53 seats in the European Parliament, making it the fifth most influential in terms of representation in the European Union. Now, here to discuss these results is Marcin Kędzierski from the Jagiellonian Club think tank in Krakow. Hello, and thanks for joining us on TVP World today.
Good afternoon.
Now, first off, the Civic Coalition came out on top, benefiting by one seat, 1 percentage point, translated into 1 seat plus for the Civic Coalition. Now, would you say this result is somewhat of a third referendum to the ruling party's situation here in Poland? We've seen we had the national elections, then the local elections, and now the European elections. You think that this is a positive sign that people here in Poland are happy with the ruling coalition?
Well, definitely the victory of the Civic Platform is something new because they managed to win after 10 years of defeats. But if you count the sum of votes for three parties that are creating the current coalition, which means it is Civic Platform, the Third Way, and the Left, they gained in the last general elections in October 2023 more than 53% of votes. And now if you add the support for Civic Platform, which accounted to 37%, and if you add 6% for the Third Way and the 6% for the Left, altogether it gives 94%, sorry, for 9%. So it means that the ruling coalition actually lost 4%. But being honest, you have to take into account that these elections are hardly comparable because of the turnout. The turnout in October 2023 was more than 74%. Now the turnout was slightly above 40%, which means that only the hardliners went to the electoral offices and voted for their parties, especially for the Civic Platform and Law and Justice, and the third party, which is Konfederacja. Because if you take into account, if you look at the number of votes for Konfederacja in general elections in autumn 2023, and if you compare it to the number of votes they got on the last elections, the European elections, it is slightly the same number. They lost only 8%, and if you compare it to the number of votes for Third Way and the Left, they lost a half of the votes they got in the last autumn. So that's why these elections could not be named as a very representative survey or electoral poll for the political emotions and the political support from the Polish society.
Well, it still shows that Poland's, rather split. If we put it in different terms, let's look in terms of seat. The Left takes through 3 seats, Third Way 3 seats, plus the coalition's 21. That gives us 27. And then Law and Justice has 20 plus Konfederacja has 6, so 27 to 26. Still pretty close. But I think the big surpriser here is Konfederacja picking up 6 seats, beating out the Left and the Third Way. One thing that comes to my mind is Mr. Braun, who was earlier had this scandal in the Polish parliament where he put out those Hanukkah candles with a fire extinguisher, and then, of course, facing huge backlash there. He actually turned out to be the front runner of Konfederacja. So this rise of Konfederacja, what does that say about the Polish electorate?
Well, as I said, the Konfederacja got almost the same number of votes that they got in autumn 2023, and these elections, the specific elections to the European Parliament, are very easy for them because they were created. They based their electoral campaign on anti-integration vocation, and that is the reason why it was quite easy to reach the interests of the voters. These elections were much more difficult for the third way, especially for the People's Party, for the PSL. And that is the reason why always Confederacja got quite good results, even in the previous elections to the European Parliament. So from my point of view, it is not a huge, shock for the political scene. The experts already knew that Confederacja might exceed 10% in these elections. But if you calculate these results on the national level, it will give you a result of 230 votes for the coalition and 230 votes for the opposition. So there is slightly a draw between these two parts of the political scene in Poland. On the other hand, if you look at Confederacja, because you ask mostly about the Confederacja, it is something beneficial for them because they had some problems with Grzegorz Braun here in the country. And by sending him to Brussels, they are,
washing their hands.
They are able somehow to introduce or to provide the policies and the politics having the Grzegorz Braun far away from Warsaw. So it is not a very bad sign for the leaders of Confederacja because it gave them much more pace for the political campaigns within the party.
Yeah, right. I'm sure that appealed to some portion or piece of their electorate. Now, similarly, I'd like to ask about Mr. Kamiński, Wąsik, and Daniel Obajtek, former CEO of Orlen. They're all facing investigations here at home. Now, will they escape judicial scrutiny as a result of their elections and them taking up seats in the European Parliament?
Well, it probably depends on the decision made by the chair of the European Parliament in the next term. And I suppose that the processes will last at least few months. So I don't want to, to make a very clear statement what will happen to these three politicians, because it is really difficult. But as I said, it will depend on the situation in the European Parliament, whether the European Parliament will be willing to make an action in order to let them be arrested if they will be sentenced by the Polish court.
So their question is still up in the air, you would say?
I think that it is still in the air. It depends on the Polish judiciary system. Especially it comes to my mind the problem of Daniel Obajtek, because there are some accusations on him, but I don't know the exact cases, so I don't want to make any clear statements on that.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see for that. Now, also, in terms of law and justice, they have a rather solid electorate that usually turns up no matter what. This was the worst result since 2015, although it wasn't, a complete disaster, right? If you look at Coalition with 21 seats and Law and Justice with 20, but still, it is their worst result since 2015. Now, why do you think that is, first of all? And second of all, there are a number of parliamentary investigative commissions in session. The cash for visa scandal, the Pegasus spyware, eavesdropping scandal, and the COVID ballot by mail scandal, have been keeping them in the headlines ever since the new government took over. So do you think in some way this has influenced the result for Law and Justice and gave the edge to the Civic Coalition?
Definitely it is true, but there is two perspectives, the short-term perspective and the long-run perspective. If we are looking at the short-term perspective, definitely such cases, these committees, the commissions, had an impact, as well as the conflict on the Polish-Belarusian border. But if you look at in a longer term, I think that the really political emotions of the Polish society are changing. And it might happen that these elections from the last Sundays were the last moment of the so-called dualistic or the bipartisan political system in Poland. Because if you look at the current disputes in the Polish society, for instance, over the new airport that might have been built between Warsaw and Łódź, you can see that the followers of this idea are both in the electorates of Civic Platform and Law and Justice. So I would rather argue that the political divisions within the Polish society are coming on different lines that we were used to in the previous 10, 15 years. So the presidential elections that will be organized next year in May might bring a major or a much bigger political change than we usually expect.
Fascinating. Well, sir, Marcin Kędzierski from the Jagiellonian Club think tank, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and perspectives on this. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.